Welcome to InterPartyConflict, the podcast where we answer your questions so you can have the best tabletop gaming experience possible. My name is Gabe.
My name is Jeff.
And we have a very special guest with us today, my friend David from work.
Hi.
People might recognize David from, he was one of the people I interviewed in my birthday party conflict episode that just came out a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
So David, introduce yourself. Tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Hi. I'm David. I work with you in a different department, though, on the same shift. So,
So scheduling was very easy.
Third shift life. Yeah.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah. So you guys are both on the night shift.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So, I'm happy to be on the show.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing some D&D stuff. I'm trying to get, a larger group started. There's a Facebook page that I'm an admin for.
Yeah.
And I basically run all the subgroups for the Facebook page. So the main page is like 80,000 strong.
Yeah.
And my biggest subgroup is probably like 1K. So I'm really trying to glean off, the masses. I'm trying to pull a bunch of nerd dads together to play D&D, and I have a gamer dads for video games, and the name of the Facebook group is Dads with Daughters. We are on a journey of discovery. There's like a colon in the middle.
Okay.
So there's plenty of Dads with Daughters groups out there, but we're the one that says we are on a journey of discovery.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Gotcha.
Cool. Cool. Yeah, we're glad to have you here. We met, you and I met like 6 months ago, something like that.
Yeah.
And I think we just met at lunch one day, and we talked, and we seemed to have a lot in common. And you started listening to the podcast. I told you about the podcast, and you started listening to it, and I think you binged the whole thing or something.
Yeah, I had never listened to podcasts previously in my life.
Yeah.
I had thought...
and we were your first. Oh,
no. I was going to say, luckily
yeah.
he started at the bottom, and then he can...
Sure, work his way up to the good stuff.
Right.
Well, my only concept of podcast previously had been Howard Stern and who's that guy who talks about pot all the time? The comedian
Joe
Rogan.
Yes,
Okay.
him. And so I thought of those two guys. I thought it was just podcasting was just for people who couldn't possibly make it on public.
Sure.
Because of the content.
Exactly. And I mean, that is a big draw to podcasting.
Yeah.
It is a lot of comedians and stuff where I definitely can't say my jokes on public, on radio or something like that. So I'll just say it on the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember we did a live episode a couple of years ago at the Garden City Library that was just kind of, just us, and I think there were 3 people in the audience or something.
I was
that.
Wait, when have we've never streamed live?
No.
But it was we were live in front of
we were
a group of people,
and it's in our feed. So if anybody has not been listening to us this whole time, you can go back and you can listen to that episode. But we had one person show up that didn't really know much about podcasts, but he was under the impression that they were only about games. I think.
Oh, okay.
He was asking, one of his questions was can there be podcasts that aren't about video games? We're oh yeah, absolutely.
Of course, yeah.
Oh.
So. Yeah. So
I imagine just wherever you've come into podcasts, whatever first got your attention is probably going to be what you assume that's what they all are. But really, it's like TV. There can be a TV show about literally anything.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we're happy to have you here, Dave. Dave or David?
I'm happy to be here.
I always just call you Dave, but
well, you're my friend, so you could call me Dave.
I guess so. Listeners out there, you can call him David. Thank you very much.
Friends call him Dave. Other people call him David. You can call me Al.
Is that a song reference?
Yeah,
Jeff?
it's a song reference.
Okay. So we're happy to have you here, Dave. And you're pretty active on our Discord as well. So if anybody has been on the Discord, they might know you from there.
Right.
Which, if you want to join us on our Discord, you can go to bit.ly/InterPartyDiscord.
Sure. All right. You guys want to go ahead and get into the episode?
Sure.
Okay. All right, guys. You are in the tavern and you're knocking back some ales or whatever.
Yeah.
And you notice over in the corner there is a shadowy figure with like a rat on his shoulder, and his eyes are slightly glowing.
Ooh.
And he has a a dagger that he's stuck in the table, and there's like a roll of parchment in front of him. He looks kind of imposing. One of you guys might want to go and talk to him.
Sure.
Somebody make some sort of a charisma-based check to go do so.
Go ahead and
okay.
Yeah, drop that die in the top of there.
Should I assume that he's like the Rat King from Ninja Turtles and it's just like, hey dude, how's it going, Cowabunga?
Yeah, right, yeah.
Okay, 14.
Okay. So you go over and you whip out some pizza and you hang 10 on your surfboard as you get his attention, and he pulls back his hood, and you see he has a flimsy disguise on, but his skin is green. He's got a not flat. He's got like a smooth head, and he's got like a shell on his back.
Oh, okay.
And then you realize, oh my goodness, you know what sort of race this guy is. He's a dragon turtle.
Oh no.
Awesome.
And so now that you've gotten his attention, and he's been so starved for attention because nobody comes to him because he looks so ominous, he welcomes you, and he says, Come here, I have this map, and do you know where this map goes?
The Dragon's Horde?
The Dragon Turtles Horde.
Oh, okay.
Yay. Aw. So I saw a homebrew dragon turtleborn.
Okay.
So instead of a dragonborn, it's a dragonborn, but it's like the dragon turtle variety.
Sure.
And I was like, I gotta make a character out of that.
That's pretty cool. Don't dragon turtles breathe steam?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. They have jets of steam for breath weapons.
Gotcha. That's really cool. Well, so anyway, Dave, you've brought in a magic item, or actually a couple magic items for us today.
Yeah. The items that I have are for the show is oversized mantle of gnome carry.
Okay.
And the oversized helm of the third horn.
Yes.
These are both worn by my character Og in the famous campaign.
Yeah. We've had a few stories either on the Funeral Pyre or elsewhere,
right,
about Og-er, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's an item that cannot be worn by somebody that's less than 4 feet tall at the shoulders. And even if you're 4 feet tall at the shoulders, if you have a slender build, you have a hard time wearing this. You have to be really built in the shoulders. So it's a top heavy. It's a triangle man type of person or woman type of a person.
Okay.
Who has to wear this. So it's got a daily power. The wearer may increase or decrease their body size by 2 or 4 feet. The overland travel speed of the wearer increases or decreases by 1 square for each 2 feet of gain or loss achieved, and for a maximum change of plus or minus 2 squares.
Okay.
If the wearer increases in size enough to grant them access to large weaponry, they may use it without any size penalty. These benefits last for a number of hours equal to half their level, minimum of 1 hour.
Okay.
And possibly the most famous feature of the mantle of gnome carry is that it allows its wearer to carry up to 3 characters on their shoulders.
Okay.
It has a 1 intelligence and will prefer to be worn by minotaurs, goliaths, gnolls, bugbears, and other uniquely oversized individuals of typically medium-sized races.
Okay, so it itself is intelligent, and it has people it likes to work with and doesn't.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's like the intelligence of a pack animal or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
So if there are no oversized individuals, then it will shrink to fit smaller individuals, but it will lose the carrying capacity in the process.
Sure. Okay. And so there's a little chart for like who can how many seats there are and such.
Right.
So if it is large, which is 10 to 12 feet at the shoulders, 1 dwarf-sized seat and 2 small seats. Oversized, which is 8 feet at the shoulders, is 3 small seats. Medium, 6 feet at the shoulders, is 1 small seat, 2 tiny seats. And for a dwarf, 4 feet at the shoulders, 1 small seat. If the wearer is small or tiny,
the wearer has to be, to start with, they have to be either oversized or medium or dwarf.
Oh, okay.
So this chart goes off of like if they grow to be large, then that's like their seat will
Oh, I see.
So the captain's chair seat will grow to like so a dwarf could sit in it. It doesn't have to be a small person.
Okay.
And then if you grow, if you shrink yourself too small or tiny, then you won't have any seats.
Sure. Okay. Okay. So like a big part, I mean, there's more to this, but I just want to say I think it's interesting that this kind of introduces like 2 more size categories that sort of fit between small and medium and then medium and large. So like oversized and dwarf.
Yeah. And I sort of conceptualized it in my mind as dwarf being the oversized of small people, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So the mantle has 1 seat on each of the right and left shoulder pauldrons and a captain's chair located behind the head. There is 1 semi-intelligent rope for each seat. They cannot be used to grab anything, but once grabbed, if the creature fails to climb, they can lift the creature into the seat. So the mantle cannot be worn over any armor heavier than hide and confers no AC bonuses. However, the wearer can share his attack with any passengers who wish to forfeit their own AC by remaining seated for an incoming attack.
Okay.
And the oversized mantle does not hinder wing movement for winged wearers in any way. Then there's a list of racial traits that from wearers or passengers that can be shared. So
interesting.
So like the gnome fadeaway ability, halfling second chance, dwarf stand your ground, Goliath stone endurance, and Minotaur has 2 of them, heedless charge and ferocity.
Interesting. Okay. So that's kind of cool. I mean, not all of these, but some of these have to do with either
stealth
or stealth or positioning. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's really neat, and it makes sense. Like, I mean, if your car is able to turn invisible, it doesn't really help you much if you don't turn invisible with it.
Sure. This just makes me think of like all the parties that start off with like a pet goblin or something. It's like you got or you know, there's plenty of stories of like the barbarian carrying around the halfling, or like the guy who plays the halfling who only shows up for half of the sessions. Like, where's he been that whole time? Oh, the Goliath's been carrying him.
Yeah.
You know? So that this kind of gives you that gives you that option of doing something like that. Like just kind of hitch a ride on the strong character.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, the party that this was used for the first time for Hog, there were 2 gnomes and 1 dwarf in that party. So
okay. So it worked perfectly.
Right.
Yeah.
Although the dwarf refused to ride me, her character felt that it was degrading to her race to ride a Minotaur. So.
Yeah, sure. Makes sense, I guess. And then to go with it, you said there was the oversized helm of the third horn.
Yeah. So this is a helmet. It's a helm of dwarven make, and it grants low light vision and direction sense upon the wearer. If this helm is used in versions prior to 4th edition, it will grant dwarf-specific detection bonuses like depth underground, new construction, etc.
Sure.
It also grants the Minotaur's natural immunity to mazes and +5 to nature, dungeoneering, tracking, no location, no direction, and navigation rolls.
I like the concept of immunity to mazes. Like, it's like it's not. I mean, it's not that you are like good at mazes, it's just you're immune to them.
Well, I think it's immune to the maze spell, but
I mean, like, no, I love the idea of I'm immune to this maze. I'm just gonna go the right way because I'm immune to it. Like, it's just a force of my nature.
Yeah.
Okay, so as a daily power, the wearer may use the time space anchor psionic ability and share these effects with any passengers when used in conjunction with the oversized mantle of gnome carry.
Now, do you know offhand what that ability does, time space anchor?
So time space anchor was it's a 3.5 edition psionic ability for when you get thrown into a dimension, like when an enemy wants to throw you into a dimension or push you out of the world or whatever. Sure. Your mind anchors yourself to one time and space, so you can't be moved from there.
Okay, so it's kind of like the dimensional anchor spell, which stops you from teleporting and such.
Right.
Okay.
But it made me think of like if you could, like, what if you could like anchor yourself to a specific point, but it's not like you can't get teleported or plane shifted to a different place. It's that when you do get plane shifted or teleported,
you can come back.
No, you're always sent to the same place.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
So you're just like, you just set it to your house or something like that. So like if anybody ever like tries to screw you over that way, you just get sent back to your house where you have all this extra equipment you can come back with or something.
Sure. Or maybe it sends you to an abandoned house in Gallup, New Mexico.
Right. Exactly.
There you go.
My thoughts exactly.
So there's a daily power attached to this. The wearer can activate True Sight, allowing them to see the creatures that are otherwise invisible once per day.
Sure.
So it shrinks and expands just like the oversized mantle.
Sure.
To fit, a oversized wearer or a dwarven wearer or whatever. So it's the oversized helm of the third horn.
Yeah.
So this basically it assumes that you already have two horns.
Okay.
Like if you're a minotaur or a tiefling, if you don't already have two horns, then just two horns will appear on the helmet.
Oh, okay.
And so when you wear the helmet the first time, you decide whether they're going to be minotaur style horns or tiefling horns.
Sure.
So if you're a narwhal, it would give you two horns, but if you're just a person, it would give you three horns. Or
now hang on, Jeff.
I don't think narwhals can wear it.
If I'm not mistaken, a narwhal's horn is actually a tooth.
Well, what do you think a minotaur's horn is? It's hair. I don't know, man.
Go on.
So, if the wearer prefers natural horns, the helm will simply sport holes for the natural horns to fit through.
Okay.
If the wearer prefers metal horns, then their natural horns will be coated in the metal of the helm when donned.
That's kind of cool. I like these little flavor-based, aspects of it.
Yeah, and so the one horn in the front, the small unicorn horn protruding from the helm, will add to physical damage of horn strikes.
Okay.
So if minotaur horns are chosen, the goring attacks do 3d6 damage instead of 2.
Yeah.
And for tieflings,
because tieflings have horns.
Yeah, I mean they're smaller than minotaur.
But the tiefling's horns go back like a ram.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So if a tiefling's using it, it's only the 1d6 damage. And then the unicorn horn has a psionic ability called Horn Shot that the other two horns do not have. The wearer can make a ranged attack through the unicorn horn at any target within 10 square line of effect. The player may choose psionic, force, lightning, fire, or cold damage for Horn Shot once per tier, and that choice is permanent until a new tier is reached.
Sure, because this was designed for 4th edition, where like you had your first tier was the first 10 levels, and then the next 10 levels were the second tier, and the 21 through 30 were third tier.
So the damage for the Horn Shot is 3d4 per tier. If a creature is seated in the captain's chair of the oversized mantle, they may take hold of the oversized helm wearer's back two horns.
Okay.
And shoot their own ranged abilities through the unicorn horn like an implement.
Yeah.
If the wearer has minotaur horns, the crosshair effect of looking through all three horns grants a +3 to hit. And if the wearer has tiefling horns, then there is only a +1 bonus to hit.
Okay. So there's a lot to both of these items, but I really like it. I like how there is a little bit of flavor tied into each of them. I like how they have abilities that can be used in conjunction. I like how it brings into effect the wearer's own horns or lack thereof. I like this. I mean, it's definitely it's a lot more complicated than a lot of items we had, but I really like it. I think it's got some really neat stuff to it, and it does seem like it was made for a specific campaign, but that's not a bad thing.
Right,
a lot of the magic items in the Dungeon Master's Guide were created specifically for, Gary Gygax's group or whatever, and then they just got used more and more and so on.
Yeah, when I was making the item, I wanted to avoid being for just Minotaurs only.
Sure.
So I wanted to open it up to other races. Also, I wanted to open it up to a utility from the passenger as well as the wearer.
I really like that.
So
I like how you can kind of grab onto it and use it as like a cannon for your own abilities.
Gatling gun or something.
That is pretty cool.
Oh my god! Yeah, you have like gnome turrets.
Yeah, because there are, especially in Pathfinder, there's like teamwork feats and such you can get, and a lot of things that are kind of meant to work with the whole group. But I think this does that possibly, in some ways better, because it makes sense that if you are riding on the back of the person that has this magic item that focuses power or whatever, it's cool that you can just grab onto it and use it as well. So anyway, I like it. I think there's a lot of really cool stuff with this.
Yeah, I liked it.
Cool.
Yeah. I like finally having a place for all of my kobold ammunition. So
I do want to say though that the shoulder pauldron seats make real good use of the fastball special.
Okay.
Colossus and Wolverine.
Yeah. Just throw them. Yeah, you could get the use the old Wombo combo book that the guys over at
from D&D Character Lab. They Wombo's Guide to Combos.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you, David. Once again, that was the oversized mantle of Gnome Carry and the oversized helm of the Third Horn. So, Jeff, if anybody wanted to submit magic items like Dave did here for us to discuss on the show, or if they had questions for us to discuss, or stories for the funeral pyre, how would they get those to us?
They can send us an email at interpartyconflict@gmail.com, or they can join us on our Interparty Discord at bit.ly/interpartydiscord.
Yep.
Or, like Dave, they could just walk into your house and you can find the address at 123 Made Up Street.
Thank you, Jeff.
It's a long drive for me, I'll just say that.
I'm sure, because you work, or you live over kind of by where we work, right?
Yeah.
And I live here. And I work there.
Yeah,
so
he's got to make that trip.
Yes, I know it's kind of a rough drive. So thank you very much for making it out here. So Dave, do you want to tell our listeners once again about your Facebook group and such?
Yeah. Okay. So the Facebook group is 80,000 strong and growing. I think it's 82 now. I lose track. But so it's dads with daughters, and it's for dads who have daughters, and we also have a nonprofit that's in the works. The paperwork is with the lawyer already, and we're going to start being able to do collect funds and fund programs that we want to roll out.
Sure. And
Fathering Together aims to bring in dads of sons in on the network too, so it's not just exclusively dads with daughters.
Okay.
But so far as what we've built, I have subgroups, gamer dads, and then RPG dads. And then I've created some Discords.
Sure.
I created an RPG Game Finder Discord.
Yep.
And that is like for whatever campaigns of D&D that I want to run. Originally, I wanted to just have all my friends who are DMs, like just post all of their campaigns on there, because I don't want to be the only one like in charge of running the games for people. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So I have one campaign that I'm running right now. It's called Fey Raven. It's just plain vanilla 4E. It's arcane and primal and martial characters.
Sure.
And I also have another campaign that I am trying to run. I don't have enough players yet for it, but it's a Final Fantasy campaign.
Right. Which we may get into a little bit later in the episode.
Right.
I think.
Right.
Okay. All right, cool. All right. Well, we'll get into questions in a moment, but I just want to thank all of our patrons for patronizing us. For anybody who's not familiar with Patreon, Patreon is an online platform where you can pledge to donate a certain amount of money per month or per episode. We're doing it per month. And you get some cool stuff in return. So we've got on our Patreon, we've got outtakes every few weeks. I've been trying to put them up after every episode that we've had them.
Okay.
For the last couple months at least. I used to wait a really long time and then put up like 30 of them at a time.
Yeah, it would just blow up people's notifications.
Right. So anyway, we've got outtakes, we've got fantasy fiction that I've written. I'm making a lot of those into audio format to be listened to over the next every few months. We've also got a bonus podcast every month that we do. We just put up our most recent one a few days ago about the Pokemon series.
Right.
Since Pokemon Sword and Shield have just come out. And then we also have a monthly Roll20 game, which has been hard to schedule the last few months. But, hey, we'll take what we can get, I guess.
Right, yeah.
And so we got some cool stuff on Patreon. So check that out. If you want to help out the show and get some cool stuff in return, you can go to patreon.com/interpartyconflict. check out the rewards and see if anything appeals to you and help keep the lights on. And of course, thank you to everybody who has donated so far. And then just one more thing, check out the other podcasts on the Crit Nation Fellowship. Check out Crit Academy at critacademy.com. Justin, Ian, and Brandon create new and reusable content for players and DMs alike. You can also check out Brute Force and Ignorance. They are an actual play podcast on the network. And we also mentioned D&D Character Lab earlier. I think they are no longer making episodes. However, I think at least one of the hosts is working on other stuff too. So anyway, but their old episodes are still there. You can go check those out. They made characters every week and pitted them against each other to debate whose characters are better. So anyway, enough of that. You guys want to go ahead and get into some questions?
Sure.
Cool.
All right. Our first question comes from Lone Revenant on Discord. What books or supplements should I buy when I want to get into 4th edition? Also, what are some strengths and weaknesses of 4th edition compared to other editions?
Yeah. So, Dave, you've played a lot of 4th edition, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Is that like what you've been primarily playing?
Well, I would say I primarily was a player in like 2nd edition.
Okay.
My DM friend that I had always ran 2nd edition, and 4th edition was out at the time that we started playing.
Sure.
So I got into buying all the 4th edition books, and I've never DM'd anything but 4th edition.
Okay.
So as far as what I would say to buy for books, player's handbooks, I would say buy all 3.
Yeah.
If you don't want psionics, then you don't have to worry about Player's Handbook 3, because that's basically all that's in there for classes. There's a divine class in there called the Rune Priest, and that's it's good. It doesn't have a deity. Like, it's all about the language and the script of the gods. So if you want to have a divine character that's not necessarily tied to a certain deity, that's in the third handbook.
Yeah, I know. I loved the first 2. Like, I mean, the Player's Handbook is great, but doesn't have all of the, like, it didn't have monk or barbarian, for example. Like, it felt kind of lacking when it first came out. Player's Handbook 2 was great and really did supplement the Player's Handbook 1. I think I had either stopped playing or was just using the character builder by the time that the 3rd one came out. So I'm not really super familiar with the Player's Handbook 3.
Well, I had to buy it because Minotaur's in there.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
But I get what you're saying about, the 2nd book, because that's where they rolled out the primal characters.
Yeah.
And so the first one you had Arcane, Divine, and Martial already.
Right.
And that's still the highest concentration of those 3 pools of, and then Primal Power, was like what the 2nd book was about was the primal power source.
Sure.
So, and they had orcs, half orcs, and what were some of their, like, shifters and stuff like that. Like, some of more races came out
In Player's Handbook 2, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, buy 1 and 2, maybe 3. If you have to have Minotaur, if you have to have Psionics, I would go 3.
Yeah.
As far as Monster Manual, I judge those based on monstrous races that can be converted to player character races.
Okay.
So in the first one, they had like 6 or 7 of them.
Yeah.
And then in the second Monster Manual in the back, they had only like 2 or 3. And then in the third one, I didn't buy it, so I have to imagine that I looked back there and there was no monstrous races in it.
Sure.
So I would just say buy the first 2 Monster Manuals. You're probably good there. That's what I did.
Yeah. It's hard for me to say specifically which books are best, because I know I have the core 3 books, Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, and Monster Manual. And I think I have a couple more of them, but primarily I used the character builder because D&D had, or Wizards of the Coast had this like D&D Insider thing that you could subscribe to, which I think we've complained about in the past.
We've talked at length about it.
Yes. But one of the best parts of it was there was this app that you could download that basically had every character option built into it. And so what that meant was you didn't technically need you needed a player's handbook to know the rules, to know how to actually play the game. But to make a character, to choose your powers, to choose your equipment, all that kind of stuff, you really just needed this one program that was just updated with your subscription.
Right.
And so
I have a question.
Yeah.
If you never subscribed to that before, can you still download that now, or is it like lost to you?
Well, there's no way to legally get anything beyond the demo. The demo was pretty good, but it just had like it had like levels 1 through 3 of like the player's handbook. However, using less than scrupulous means, you can download the latest update, which was maybe 10 years ago or something by this point.
Yeah.
Maybe not that long, but the latest update was several years ago. And you can download that, and then you can update your character builder and have basically every 4th edition player option on your computer right there at your disposal. Which, again, it's not super... I mean, it's not legal. Wizards of the Coast probably doesn't want you to do it. But if you want to play 4th edition, which is not supported anymore, it is the best way to do it.
Yeah, I don't imagine nobody's losing a lot of money.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. And they're not gonna send like people after you for doing it. Like, you know, it's as long as you're not trying to like, I don't know, sell it or something.
Right. And hey, in my defense, I paid for this this subscription-based service for at least a year, and they never, a lot of the stuff that they like promised never came out.
Right.
So in my defense, I'm okay with pirating the update when I've already paid them more money than I should have.
Right.
And they didn't even give me what they promised.
Yeah.
That 4th edition, D&D Insider specifically, had a troubled history, I suppose. I don't really want to get into it too much, but there were well-documented problems with it.
Yeah.
So I'm not the first person to complain about it or anything like that. But if nowadays you wanted to get into 4th edition, I would absolutely recommend finding whatever means you have to find in order to use the character builder.
Yeah.
Because it has so much content in it.
Yeah, because the character builder itself is pretty good. Like I remember building a character on it with all the options. And it's like you can spend all day building characters on this thing. That's why I like using. I have an app on my phone for making 5th edition characters, and it has most of the content to an extent. Like, they basically had to kind of fill in the gaps themselves. So, it's not like copy and pasted from the actual books or anything. But I like being able to use something like a character builder to make character. It just makes it so much fun and easy. Yeah.
I remember feeling like in 4th edition, the Dungeon Master's Guide wasn't the most necessary thing. I mean, like we've talked about which books we think are usually the best, but in 4th edition especially, all of the magic items were in the player's handbook.
That's true, yeah.
4th edition D&D guide is only if you have never DM'd an edition before. Yeah. Or if you want like some esoteric stuff, to help run your game. Like flavor text or some kind of charts or something. I mean, there's not a whole lot of meat in the 4th edition DM guide. Yeah, and I mean that's kind of a side effect of just how the game is run.
Yeah, a lot of the time.
Right.
And I mean, in most editions, the DM's guide is sort of like it's something you get when you want to be like when you want to have every tool at your disposal.
Sure.
But if you're experienced DM in any form, like you don't necessarily need it.
Yeah. Dave, have you had much experience with D&D Essentials, like the 4th edition Essentials line?
No, I was in a shop, a card shop before, and I played like a board game from the Essentials.
Okay.
Like a box set.
Sure.
And I think it was like Fighting the Drow or whatever. Are you talking about like the line of books like Martial Power or because I know that there was Martial Power, Psionic Power, Divine Power.
Well, so there was. I don't really know too much about them myself because they came out after I stopped playing 4th edition. But there was a line of books called Dungeons and Dragons Essentials, which my understanding was that it was kind of like a 4.5 edition. They took the base rules of 4th edition, and then they kind of like reworked some stuff and then came out with basically new classes and new options that used the updated rules. Like, for example, I remember there being in 4th edition, most of your attacks were going to be like power based. You had a number of powers that were specific to your class. They had, there was usually an attack plus some extra effect or something, depending on the class and so on. From what I understand, D&D Essentials they instead made it so that they gave you abilities that added onto a basic attack, or at least for some classes. So it was less that you were using powers and more that you were using basic attacks and then getting bonus stuff on top of those. Oh. So it kind of pulled the focus a bit away from a lot of the powers that existed before. And so as a result, the only impression that I have of these is people saying that if you play a D&D Essentials character in the same group as a 4th edition character, even though they ostensibly they were compatible, the Essentials character was going to end up being way more versatile, way more powerful, because it was made using all of these updated rules that the earlier version of that edition didn't quite have worked out yet.
That kind of makes sense. Power creep and stuff like
exactly,
that.
Exactly. That's what it felt like to me. But again, I've never played D&D Essentials, so I don't know 100% if that's accurate, but that's the impression I got at the time, and I've never gone back to, learn another rule book.
I think I remember now that I was playing online, like Roll20 with some guys, and they were like, "Oh, you can, your Dragonborn can have wings," and I was like, "What?"
Oh, okay.
And they're like, "Yeah, it's like it might have been the Essentials pack they were trying to show me," and like I got to pick between different colors of Dragonborn, and the different colors had either wings or not wings or whatever.
Okay. Well, so I guess to answer the question, like which books are. Sorry, I can't see where my mouse is. Sorry. Like which books or supplements should you buy? Probably the at least the Player's Handbook, at least the Monster Manual. I do remember the Monster Manual too. I didn't really need the races and such from the Monster Manuals because again, I had the character builder and they were already in there. But I remember the monsters in the Monster Manual 1 not quite being enough. Right. I know, like we had times when we were trying to run our 4th edition game, and I just couldn't make the monster that I wanted to fight because the version in the Monster Manual was either way too high of a level or way too low. So I do feel like more than just the Monster Manual, maybe the Monster Manual 2.
Yeah, especially with like lichens, like the werewolves and stuff like that. They have actual were-rats in the second the second Monster Manual.
Yeah.
So it's like lower level things that where a werewolf before was just high level. And then they have like a higher level werewolf, like a werewolf lord or something that wasn't in the first one.
Yeah,
so,
okay.
If you have the second one, it gives you more tiers of play on like per monster,
right? Because if you want to run a specific theme, like you want this adventure to be a lycanthropes, full moon, that whole thing, but it's like, but the party's at this specific level. Well, I can't run werewolves because that's too strong,
right?
Yeah. Oh, I want something like were-rats instead.
Yeah,
I think the cover of the Monster Manual 3 was the Spider Queen.
Oh, okay. I think I have them. I do have the Monster Manual 2 because it had Demogorgon on it.
Yes, that's Demogorgon.
Not the Demogorgon.
Not the Demogorgon.
But Demogorgon, the Demon Lord.
Yeah. Right.
Anyway,
and
sorry.
Orcus was the first.
Yes, correct.
Cover.
I really liked 4th edition's art.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Actually, that's my favorite edition art-wise.
Okay.
Because it's it's the same artist that did like the Eberron books, the original Eberron book. I feel like it.
I think so.
I feel like because I remember really liking the Eberron campaign setting, like the 3rd edition Eberron book, and being like, this art is great. I feel like maybe it's not. Now that I'm thinking back on it, but in any case, 4th edition art is probably one of the best.
Sure. And then if you are going to get into 4th edition again, like it's Wizards of the Coast probably doesn't want you to do it, but I do recommend finding some way to get a copy of the updated character builder,
right?
Because it is like the perfect app for playing 4th edition.
This might not be easy getting your hands on all the books, like who's
that's
selling
true.
them.
That's true too.
You maybe be able to get them online, maybe from a used seller or something.
Sure,
like
and
that.
also the character builder isn't going to give you the same experience as you'll get from having the book. There is a lot of stuff that is not in the character builder, but as far as building a character, it gives you every option that you have, and it brings them up. Like if you don't qualify for it, it won't show up. Mm-hmm. So it's great. I cannot speak highly enough of that one aspect of D&D Insider.
Mm-hmm. To Jeff's point, although the 4th edition books are hard to find nowadays, if you can find them, they're cheap.
Okay.
They're dirt cheap. People didn't like that edition popularly, and so whoever has them and is stocking them will be like, yeah, okay, $18 or $21. It's not
Yeah, because of its sort of rocky popularity, I guess.
Yeah.
Like if you find it probably isn't like stupid expensive. Like if you wanted to find every single third and 3.5 edition book.
Oh boy, you're buying a lot of books.
I mean, you're buying a lot of books. They're going to be much harder to find, and I feel like certain ones are going to cost more just because they're, just at this point. I mean, it is an older edition, obviously, but
right.
It's just going to be harder to find and more expensive.
Yeah.
I found second edition books that go for a higher price than fourth edition books.
Okay, I can believe that. So the second part of the question is, what are the strengths and weaknesses of fourth edition compared to other games or editions? Now the art, I think, is one thing Jeff said. The art's really good.
That's valid, yeah.
But Dave, you did bring up that a lot of people didn't like fourth edition. I've said it. I'm sure I've talked about this before, but I think the fourth edition very much got a bad rap. I think that the problem was a lot of people went in with the wrong expectations. It was not meant to be a 3.75. It was not meant to be the same kind of experience as you would get playing third edition or playing second edition or first edition. They took it in a different direction, and unfortunately, that's not what a lot of people wanted. And then because so many people had an instant reaction of, whoa, I don't like this, a lot of people that complain about it nowadays, I'm pretty sure have never even actually played it.
Right.
They just heard it was bad, and then that's all they needed to know, and then they went ahead and complained about it to other people.
Yeah.
So let's just take one instance of fourth edition. The lack of spell charts.
Okay.
Okay, so that could be either a positive or a negative based on what you want to do with D&D.
Sure.
In other editions, the spell charts that were available were pretty cool, because no matter what divine character you had, you could pick a piece of the spell chart, and that was your domain, and you had power over that.
Sure.
Fourth edition made it just the powers are specific to the class.
Yeah.
So there were no universal spell charts. Now, if you really like D&D for the spell charts, then you probably won't like fourth edition.
Sure.
But for me, when I'm trying to create my Final Fantasy D&D, that's perfect because Final Fantasy already has spell charts for their games.
And they are class specific.
And so I don't have to marry the D&D spell charts with whatever the Final Fantasy spell lists are going to be.
Sure.
So characters still get to have their own powers, and if they want to take a job, like as in Final Fantasy Tactics type rules, they can do that, and they have their own spell list, and it doesn't conflict with what characters already have.
Okay.
So from that standpoint, I think the strength of D&D 4E is that you can marry it with maybe outside material and import it better, cleaner.
Yeah. So, I guess if I had to describe what fourth edition was like compared to other editions, in other editions, the classes and such were generally a bit more freeform, I think. Like you said that any divine caster will have access to most of the same spells.
Right.
They might have a list specific to their class, but most of the spells on there, a cleric spells will be 75% the same as a druid spells and a paladin spells or whatever. A wizard and sorcerer in third edition literally had the exact same spell list, despite the fact that each class got their own, their own
sort of
number.
boons.
Yeah. With fourth edition, however, it was much less about there's just this big, giant standard list of spells. Instead, it was each class, each level had these options to choose from, which meant that you had a lot more options, but you had a lot smaller selection, if that makes any sense.
Right.
So, if you were, in third or fifth edition, if you are a third level wizard, you have access to second level spells. At fourth level, you just get more second level spells. And then at fifth level, you get third level spells and probably some more second level spells too. And so you're constantly going back to those. Whereas in fourth edition, at third level, you choose from these. At fourth level, you choose from these. At fifth level, you choose from these.
Right.
Each of those lists was different. And then not only that, it limited you to only having a handful of abilities. After a certain point, you had to replace one of your earlier abilities with a later one.
Right.
So you didn't have 50 spells to cast at 20th level or whatever. You had 5. Maybe more than 5, but you had roughly 5 or so.
It's about 10, 12.
Oh, okay. So 10 or 12, and then when you get a new one, you're replacing an older one. And so it was a lot less about an adventuring day and much more about like the individual encounter. There were daily abilities, but there were also encounter abilities. There were at-will abilities. And a lot of people said that it felt like it was supposed to be like an MMORPG. First off, I don't see why that's a problem. MMORPGs are great.
Yes.
They were very popular at the time.
Well, my thing with it was everyone was like, "Oh my god, it's like an MMO," and then they were like, "No, that's not at all what it's like, guys. Come on."
I mean,
but then you read the books and it's like, no, this is exactly like
it. Very much does feel like an MMORPG,
but it's not a problem.
The funny thing is, they would be like, "Oh, that sounds like an MMO, so let's just not play it," and then they would be like, "So let's go home and play Warcraft."
Like, yeah. Now, I have heard. Not from an official source, but like Matt Colville is a guy on YouTube that talks about D&D a lot. He described 4th edition as being, it's not that they tried to make it like an MMO, it's that they tried to make it so that you can make a character in one group, play that exact same character in another group, and have the exact same experience.
Yeah.
And I think 4th edition maybe did that better than other editions. Whether it did that perfectly or not, I think that's up for debate. But I think that could make sense for how it turned out the way it did. I also think it's just that MMOs and tabletop games both kind of are striving for something similar, so it shouldn't be a surprise when they end up kind of similar. Now, again, I don't think MMOs are bad.
No.
If they had just outright said, yeah, we're trying to make it like an MMO, I don't think anyone would have really had a problem with that. Like Jeff said, it was a little weird when it looks so much like an MMO and they're insistent that it's not.
Right. It seems so much like it, and when somebody made that comparison, they sort of were like, no.
At one point, they even referred to D&D Insider as a quote-unquote patch.
Oh my goodness.
So, anyway.
So, the thing about 4th edition is they had clearly defined roles.
Yes.
So there was leader, there was defender, there was striker, and there was controller.
Yep.
So those roles, like if you're an Avenger, you're going to be a striker.
Yep.
And you can take certain feats and certain abilities or whatever that might lend to more of a tactical controller type of thing, but your meat and potatoes is going to be your striker abilities. Dealing burst damage. Yeah, like every paladin is a defender first, leader second.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. That's why I think you could take a character out of one campaign and put it into another campaign, and they know what to expect from your character.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. So just with 4th edition, another criticism that a lot of people had was that there was very little, and I mean, I brought up this criticism myself. Looking back, I think maybe I was a bit unfair with it, but it's just that the game is very combat-centric.
Yeah.
Now, arguably, other editions are also very combat-centric, but, that's up for debate. But in 4th edition, combat was very meant to be tactical. It was meant to be grid-based. You were going to have a hard time if you were not playing with miniatures. There were a lot of rules that were very clearly meant for combat and nothing else.
Right.
Like, there were almost no class abilities that were not limited by rounds and such. Mm-hmm. And if you wanted to cast any spells that were long-term, like, in 3rd edition, there were tons of spells you could cast, like an hour or 24 hours duration and such. In 4th edition, anything that you wanted to do like that had a cost to it. Those were like your rituals. Mm-hmm. And that, in my opinion, discouraged a lot of people from using them because you had to spend money every time you wanted to cast Alarm or whatever. Yeah. Whereas before, it would have just been a thing you can do a certain number of times per day. Now, So I definitely think that there was a focus towards combat and there was less focus on flavor and description, but the argument can be made that freed you up to describe things however you want. You have a lot more freedom because the game doesn't shoehorn you into a certain description. You could take that power your class has and describe it however you want. And I've played with some groups that did go really hog wild with role-playing, and the more the players engage in it, the more they got to realize how free they were to role-play however they wanted. Yeah. However, if you don't take that leap, if you are focusing on the rules to augment your role playing, which, let's be fair, I do most of the time. I'm sure you do this too, Jeff. Like,
absolutely.
Your skills and such are a lot of what you will look to when you are thinking about role playing.
Yeah.
If you're that kind of player, it feels very limiting because you're like, well, I don't have any non-combat abilities. How can I focus my character towards role playing when all of my abilities are combat? It's just kind of a different, you have to be in a different mindset to get the most out of the game. And a lot of people, especially when they went in thinking this isn't what I want from D&D, they didn't like that. And so it made it harder for them to play.
Yeah, I absolutely make with third and then with fifth, when I make a character, I make mechanics first.
Yeah.
And then like the personality and stuff to match with the mechanics. But yeah, you're right. With when you're only dealing with the one set of powers that the class gives you.
Yeah.
You got a little bit less to work with there.
Yeah, but 4th edition, everybody forgets. 4th edition did introduce the non-combat encounters, the
skill challenges.
The skill
that's true.
challenges,
Yes, it did. And 5th edition that's not a core 5th edition mechanic.
Right.
Skill challenges were so good. 4th edition did some really good stuff, some of which did make its way into 5th edition, some of which didn't, but a lot of people use it as house rules instead. I really think it got a bad rap because so many people, they took one look at it and were like, oh, this is an MMO, or, oh, this isn't 3.5 anymore. I'm going to go play Pathfinder instead.
Yeah. There was just a bunch of rough. It did get a bad rap for it's the D&D insider thing mixed with the like this is just an MMO thing. No, it's not.
Yeah.
You're stupid. But like when I finally got around to playing it, like I'm like this edition is fine. It's great.
Yeah.
Although then again, when I fully played it for the first time, which was on a campaign that you were running, like that was way after the fact.
Yeah,
like 5th.
This was like, but it was about 3 years ago.
But we had like the full character creator thing, so
we did,
way more options.
Acquired it,
right? So we definitely had way more options. Like we had all of the power creep ahead of time.
Yeah, So if you play 4th edition as a tactical war game with or without freeform role playing, I think that it's a great game. It is so good at what it does.
I think the way you have to play 4th edition is you have to say, okay, this part is going to be combat now, and this part is going to be out of combat now.
Sure.
If you can do that, in other editions, they try to melt it together seamlessly, and in my opinion, I hate to speak against I hate to be a heretic here, but I don't think in the other editions it flows together as seamlessly as
people
you want it to, and
they
thought it did, because I would constantly be asking my DM, okay, so an hour, how many more rounds? Yeah. And that's a lot of multiplication.
Right.
Sure. Yeah, I can understand that. I think that some people make that work. Some people don't. But it's definitely one of the obstacles that can come from the other editions. I really like 4th edition for what it does. I don't think it was trying to be something it wasn't. I think people just wanted it to be something else.
Oh yeah,
really a shame. I would love for 6th edition to be more of the attitude that 4th edition had, where let's do something different instead of just more of the same.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's pretty cut and dry. A successful DM of 4th edition will just be able to switch. Say, okay, this is combat now. This is not combat now.
All right, so our next question comes from Peter K. on email. Have you ever used Lego for D&D? And what are your thoughts on it? So Legos for for
building
terrain,
battle maps and terrain and stuff. Yeah,
battle maps, and then the miniatures, I guess.
Sure.
You guys have done it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've used Legos for. I had my Final Fantasy campaign I was talking about. It's called. It was at the time. It was called Children of the Crystal. Was the working title for the campaign.
Okay.
There's lots of crystals in Final Fantasy.
Makes sense.
Sure.
So I wanted it to be a Final Fantasy that encompassed all of the narrative of any of the Final Fantasies that I wanted to bring in. So there was a Council of Sids. I had worked out. I had created this whole metaverse of Final Fantasy having plane shifted, like in D&D terms.
Yeah.
So the planes intersected with D&D planes, the Forgotten Realms.
Okay.
So all the adventures were from Forgotten Realms, and then just the garden from Final Fantasy VIII just appeared somewhere
Okay.
out of nowhere, and then all of, like, the Final Fantasy beasts would, had overrun the land, and they became like apex predators, because when you're playing Final Fantasy, they have hundreds and thousands of hit points.
Yeah.
And you have a huge strength ladder to climb, and
Right.
so the whole thing was, you have to work in conjunction with this council of Sids. They had learned how to create portals to other Final Fantasy dimensions, and they brought all of the brightest minds together.
Yeah.
And so I had made Final Fantasy 12 Lego.
Okay.
So the Tomb of King Wraithwall.
Okay, yeah. I've played maybe the first like third of Final Fantasy 12. I think I got just past where you're talking about.
So that very first Esper that you get.
Yeah.
So I made that whole thing, that whole dungeon out of Legos.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
And it doesn't look good because I'm using pieces that I had from Spyrius and Ice Planet.
Yeah.
And, so it kind of made me think, I wish I had Dungeons and Dragons Legos. Like, I wish they would come together on a project.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, that
Because
would be.
I could see myself buying like Orc Outpost or
Like,
that's a good point. That like they could make specific play sets that are based on like well-known dungeons and stuff like that. Like the Tomb of Horrors would be its own set.
I would be all over a Tomb of Horrors Lego set.
Yeah, absolutely.
They could make Elfheim. They could make the Dwarven Mines.
Baldur's Gate.
Baldur's Gate. I would buy Baldur's Gate.
Yeah. Well, are there Lord of the Rings Legos, right?
Did they go with Lego? Yeah, they did. You're right.
Or Harry Potter at least.
Yeah, Harry Potter has. Yeah, there's Potter Legos.
Probably a way you could make it work. But
for sure.
Some D&D branded. Oh my goodness, a Lego Beholder.
Yeah. Oh,
I would be all over that. Or a Lego Displacer Beast with like flexible rubber tentacles. Oh man, I would love that.
They definitely have those because they have like the whole bionics thing too.
Yeah.
I want just a Lego set to come out that is the weapons manual. Like the Adventurer's Vault.
That would
Lego
be really cool.
Because, I mean, how many knight sets do you have to go buy to just get the knight swords and the armor that they wear?
Right.
I mean, just release an Adventurer's Vault.
Yeah.
That'd be sweet.
That would be pretty cool.
I mean, and then they can make like a whole like Lego D&D video game series too, because they got a Lego video game series.
Wizards of the Coast, get on this.
Yeah,
they definitely could. I have tiles.
Okay.
Because that's the one thing that Lego sort of lacks in all of their sets. They show you how to build this cool spaceship or this cool building or this whatever. The tile space is really scarce. They give you one tile to build out your platform on.
Yeah.
So I went out into Toys R Us and before they were closed, I basically
snuck in after they had closed.
I basically bought them out of their Lego tiles.
Yeah.
At like 2 or 3 locations because I wanted like blue tiles for water. I got green tiles for like the land. I got like tan tiles for desert. I got gray tiles for intercity.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I remember my old Lego collection. Like, just like the big flat green pieces that were just like grass or whatever. Yeah, those like I would break those all the time because they were just like thin, flimsy platforms with the little pegs on them, so you can actually stick the Lego stuff onto it. But yeah, I can see that. Yeah, that's not something that's easy to come by.
Right. Yeah, if they just released like a pack of those, that would be helpful for building dungeons.
Yeah, like a trail that goes through the woods.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I mean, they have spaceship landing pad ones. Why can't they have like forest fork in the woods?
Sure.
I have to always stop myself from looking at the Lego stuff for too long because I will spend way more money than I need to, and then
it's way more expensive than I would if it was cheaper. I'd buy the heck out of Lego.
Yeah, because I would be like, oh, that thing is really cool. I'd like to build it, and then there was a time where I bought like $120 thing for Lego because I thought it looked really cool.
Yeah.
And I put it together. I was like, that was cool. And then I was like, that was $120. I could have used that for something else. This is gonna get lost anyway. Like this is eventually, and I don't know where that is.
And that's the problem I have with like building terrain and stuff. Is like, now what do I do with it? Where do I put this? Where do I store this thing?
My uncle, on the other hand, has like the entire space above his garage
Oh my.
is just all Lego sets.
See, that's what we need. We all need bigger houses so that
we could
fit
build those houses out of Lego.
Oh, jeez. I mean, they kind of do have that.
Yeah.
Like there are, you know, house building kits, that,
modular housing,
modular housing
right.
type of things. Like, you know, there's a lot of different ways to build a house these days.
Yeah.
They have 3D printers that print houses.
That is true. That is true.
Like instead of plastic, it's just cement.
Yeah. So to answer the question, I actually haven't. I mean, we've talked about it before. Like I've known people who have, but because I so rarely used physical terrain anyways, I just never. And also, I never had a lot of Legos to throw around.
Mm-hmm.
So I personally never really did. But I know it's such an obvious solution.
Yeah.
You know.
Definitely have at some point or another use pieces and parts or something. And I know because Steve had a lot of Legos.
Yeah.
And like he used Legos and like cardboard and bits and pieces from like board games and stuff that he'd find at like garage sales. So like he had a big collection of just like figures and stuff from different
Unofficial D&D stuff.
Exactly. So we just, you know, we did with what we had, and you know, a good chunk of it was Lego.
Yeah.
All right. Our next question comes from Hazapan on Reddit. What mechanics would you want in a new RPG?
Yeah, and I'll mention that when Hazapan submitted this question, he was interested in getting people's thoughts to him. He's like making a survey or something about what sort of stuff, you know, a new RPG could benefit from. So if you are interested, if you want to, I'll put a link in the show notes to his Reddit profile. You can just send him a direct message. If you have any ideas, if you have any feedback, we'd love to hear it, of course. But if you want to send any directly to him to help him, so yeah, what's some stuff you would want in a new RPG?
So my new RPG that I'm making, the Final Fantasy RPG, I wanted limit breaks.
Limit breaks would be pretty good.
And so, ostensibly, if you're running 4th edition, there's not that much of a difference between daily powers and limit breaks.
Okay.
So daily power, I guess I would say limit breaks just have the potential to be way more destructive than your average daily power.
Sure. Limit breaks also in some form need to be like triggered. So like in depending on the game, you either need to have taken damage or whatever.
Well,
but
what immediately comes to mind to me is the bloodied thing, because 4th edition introduced the bloodied of the condition, I guess, which was once you got below half hit points, you were considered bloodied.
Yeah.
And certain things
would activate, certain things affected you differently.
Yeah, certain powers were more powerful if you were bloodied, or you know, that sort of thing.
That's very astute of you, Jeff. That's actually the mechanic that I worked out for.
Didn't mean to
no, it's
cut
great.
in there.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it works really nicely for it. Yeah.
It's a clue to me that what I'm doing is intuitive for other outsider people who haven't played it yet. But yeah, when you're bloodied, you get to do your limit break, and I just wanted I wanted to have, you know, the whole fire Firaga.
Sure.
Because my thing with D&D has always been the spell charts. They have all different elements, but they don't have all different elements at all different power levels.
Right.
That's true. Yeah. So like you've got Fireball, which is a 3rd level spell, and then the next level up you've got like Cone of Cold or something, which is a different spell.
Right.
Yeah.
So and then you've got Chain Lightning or whatever.
Yeah, so if you want to be a guy who's all about fire, like you're basically just kind of, well, I'm just going to cast Fireball at a higher level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I just figured like having those elements all at each level, you know, the higher level you go, it's just increasing the magnitude and increasing the damage output.
Sure. Yeah, that could work. I know that in 5th edition, like generally speaking, you can usually increase the damage of a spell by just casting at a higher level. I would like if it was more than just the damage. For example, let's say in Final Fantasy VII, when you cast Fire 1 or just Fire, you know, it's like a little flare of fire and does some damage. But then you cast Fire 2 or Fyra, and then it's like a much, much bigger, you know, it's like much more spectacular looking effect. And then Firaga or Fire 3, it's like huge and whatever. And of course, you could just describe your Fireball as, oh, it's bigger or whatever. But if it hit a bigger area because you used a higher level spell? That would be pretty cool.
It does in my version of Final Fantasy because I borrowed from Tactics.
Okay, Final Fantasy Tactics. Yeah.
So the Fire 2 spell, it had it affected not only a square that it was centered on, but it affected like squares around it.
Yep.
But it affected 4 squares around it. So I just said, well, 4th edition D&D, it will affect all of the squares that touch it. So it's 8 around the targeted square.
Yeah, so like in 4th edition, that would have been called a burst.
Right. So I just increased the burst with every time it went from fire to like Fira to Firaga to Firaja. I just increased the burst.
There you go. I've heard a lot of people say that they want something akin to summons in D&D.
Yes.
Now, personally, if it were me, I would, because, I mean, really, in most Final Fantasy games, a summon is just deals damage, but it has a big, long animation or whatever. So, at the moment, if I had to assign a summon in the game, I would probably just reflavor a fireball to be, Ifrit flies in and shoots fire or whatever. Do you have any ideas for something other than that to get summons into a game?
So Final Fantasy has had the Evoker character, which is basically you call upon a summon and it just comes down and deals damage, and it's just that. It's just a magic spell from up above.
Sure.
But Final Fantasy X, 12, 13, their summons, you can go into the menu and you can choose, or else if you can't go into the menu and choose on the game, and at least if you have a player's guide, it'll show you what the AI says is their abilities and the triggers for what abilities they use.
Yeah.
So I thought that you should be able to summon something and be able to control it like you would a pet familiar.
Okay.
Yeah. There you go. Summoning in something that's gonna, be there for like a few rounds, like, and have like a set number of abilities it can use in those rounds or something.
Sure.
So I would like create a delineation between the evoker type of a summoner and like the high summoner who actually has a corporeal being show up.
Sure.
You know.
Okay. I love limit breaks. I love the idea of using, especially with the bloodied condition, using your daily powers as limit breaks. I think at one point in 4th edition, I was going to have a character that was missing an arm, but whenever she used a daily power for the encounter, she had like a spectral arm that she could use. I mean, it was just for flavor. I don't think it would have really done anything mechanically. But I like the idea of your daily powers being like some big, cool thing like that. Yeah.
I actually wanted to use Final Fantasy VII. It's funny you say missing the arm. I wanted to use the Barrett gun arm.
Okay,
I wanted to have like Full Metal Alchemist, like options for having just like a cybernetic arm or a cybernetic leg or whatever.
Sure.
So there's not really rules for that, so I haven't been able to implement it yet.
Yeah, I guess
I'd have to invent my own if I wanted to put that in.
Well, because I mean, I guess we're talking about what mechanics we would want in a new RPG. There are probably RPGs out there that deal with this, but like D&D certainly doesn't. Dealing with like losing limbs and called shots and such. I know we've talked at length about called shots and permanent injuries in the past. I really think that a system built with those in mind could be good. I think a lot of people could be looking for something like that.
Yeah.
I've talked about it, what I want in a 6th edition. I would love RPGs that have rules for role-playing. I know that people say, oh, you don't need rules for role-playing, you just do it. To which I say, okay, I don't need rules for saying I hit the guy. But there are very much rules for how I hit the guy and how much damage I do and so on. So I think that a game that focuses more on the actual nitty-gritty of what role-playing is, instead of just saying, hey, get good at improv right now.
Right, yeah, exactly.
You know, like, I would love more mechanics like that.
It's like, sorry, I'm not going to get less awkward, guys. It's not happening, so I'd rather have a rule book to tell me how to talk to people.
Right, because, I mean, we talked about, like, I'm the type of player that I use the mechanics to drive my role-playing.
Yeah.
If there were mechanics specifically for role-playing, it would make my job so much easier.
And, you know, you would obviously build it so you don't have to use those rules.
Sure.
Like that would be something that you don't want to make it so like, no, you have to talk like this.
Right.
You know, like that's a bit much, but
yeah,
like,
I mean, there's a way to do it right and a way to do it wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know what the way to do it right is, but I'm sure there is a way to do it right.
Yeah, but having guidelines, although you do want to be careful with it, because when like a new player says, "Oh, I want to do this cool thing that I saw in a movie, or I heard on Critical Role or something like that."
Sure.
You know, and then the DM looks at him and is like, "But that's not in the book. You're not going to do that." Like, so like if you put that into role playing, then it's like you can't say that. It's not in the rule book, you know. That
I guess
you have that danger of the DM who says no, because it's not specifically written in the book.
That already happens. They just don't use that as the excuse.
Well, yeah.
I think there's a lot to be said for just having been in theater in high school.
Yeah,
and,
sure.
Having been in humanities classes and English lit and things like that.
Sure. So, do you guys have anything else for what you would want in a new RPG?
More robots and turtles, spaceships.
Warforged. I want Goliath forged and Dwarf forged.
Yeah, that's good. I like it. Yep.
Just change the size ability. Just change the size category.
Okay.
Hey, I'm gonna email Gary Gygax right now.
If you're in a campaign setting that uses those, awesome. All the power to you.
Gary Gygax at heaven.com.
I have a character.
Jeff, what makes you think Gary Gygax is in heaven?
Well, he's at least got the account,
He was summoning demons, Jeff, through this devil game.
At the very least, he wrote part of the updates for hell. Part of the rules.
I imagine he's in some sort of administrative position wherever he is.
Right. Yeah.
So I have a character, a Warforged character I'm dying to play. Actually, his name is Gunther.
Okay.
And, the whole German trance dance scene sort of, "Hi, I'm Gunther," But his whole backstory is he's like a Terminator from the future.
Okay.
And his whole mission is to stop the invention of guns.
Interesting.
So, because the post-apocalyptic future where he comes from has been ripped apart because of humans and their gun war.
Yeah.
So if he can stop the first automatic pistol or rifle or whatever from being made. So basically, like muskets are like okay because they have to be handcrafted. They're individual, each one, but when you can start mass produce them, so the mass production of guns.
So I like the idea that it is a robot that is sent back to stop mass production.
Yes.
Without which he would not exist probably.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, that's a compelling story.
Yeah, I like that.
Well, they have tasers in the future. And so he's like, a taser is a much more,
it's much more acceptable.
Much more humane.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, I would play in that game. All right.
Yeah, that's it, Gabe. So when I'm like, I want to play a Warforged, and you're like, well, are we playing an Eberron? I was just like, no. But Gabe, in the future of whatever setting that you're gonna play the campaign in, Warforged do exist in the future. And he's just coming back. He's just traveling back in time.
Jeff, I'm going to be perfectly honest when I say this. I would let you play a Warforged if you were sent back from the future to prevent something to happen. Yes. I like that idea.
This Warforged is sent back from the future to prevent Gabe from not letting me play the Warforged.
Oh, no. You've done it, Jeff. At which point, Jeff looks at his watch, he taps something, and he dematerializes. My job is done.
Yes.
I am not against Warforged. I will only use them if I feel that they work.
Right.
And if you were to tell me that's your character concept, I would like it. I have let you play Warforged pretty much every time that you have wanted to play Warforged. We just had to come up with a good backstory.
Right, yeah. No, it's just a joke that Gabe won't let me do it. He lets me play Warforged whenever I want to.
Right. But I do put up a fight.
Right.
I have not had that much luck with DMs, and I am still glaringly jealous at the amount of times you played Warforged.
You should try playing Warforged.
I should.
That seems to be the solution.
Yeah, just play it. Like when they say you can't play Warforged, just do it anyway. Just be like, I'm a Warforged. You're just like, they're like, no, you're gonna be an elf. You're like, okay, and then like first adventure, like the first session, you're like, I ripped the skin off my
oh no
stone face.
No, I'm liquid metal. Sure. All right. Well, I think that'll do it for our regular questions today, but we do still have our social media questions.
Oh, yeah.
So our last social media question was, have you ever played a character that was significantly older or younger than yourself? Dave, do you have an answer before I ask Jeff if he remembers what he said several weeks ago when we did this?
Right.
Okay, yeah. So I played a character named Abner Cussy.
Okay.
And he, as far as his outlook on life, I borrowed a lot from Jeff Dunham's Walter the Dummy.
Okay.
So he's super macho. He's super sexist. Hates his wife. He
sounds like a great person you're building here.
Well, so when he was young, he was drafted in the military. It was like a national obligation. He served 5 years in the military. He didn't like it, so he went out to the country to build a farm, and he just wanted to live the quiet life. Well, he kept growing stronger and stronger and stronger slowly in a way that he didn't quite recognize until one day he was in town. It was a festival, and he just lifted a bull in full view of all these people.
Okay.
So they were like, well, you're wasting your talents. Why are you here? So he's like, yeah, maybe I should take this show on the road. But I had to create a character who had a family but would be willing to leave it. And so I invented like two sons. So his one son was just this hulking picture of masculinity, and he died tragically in either a war accident or like a farm accident with heavy machinery or whatever.
Thresher or something.
Yeah. So, and then the little boy, the girly boy, would never be able to stack up.
Okay.
And so I thought, yeah, he just leaves the girly boy with his mom and he goes on the road. And then I thought, because I was challenging myself to play an older guy.
Sure.
I thought I could easily, in a different campaign, take the wife's perspective and make an old lady and play an old lady.
Okay.
And then I could easily, in a third campaign, take the son.
Yeah.
And so I would have all different perspectives of the Cussy family story and, see where they match up and where the people are obviously lying.
I mean, that's a really cool idea. I'm going to be honest here.
Yeah.
Like legacy characters. Yeah. Good.
Okay. But, cool. That campaign was so short-lived, I didn't really give Cussy a good spotlight.
Yeah, no, that seems to be the curse of some of the best character concepts.
Right,
campaigns just don't last long enough. Yeah. Jeff, do you remember what you said when we asked this question several weeks ago?
Right. Well, I've definitely played older characters. One of which is just an old halfling lady that I played. Yep. But now I remember there is a character that was a kid that I played, but it wasn't in D&D. It was in the Mountain Witch.
Oh yeah,
the newer version of the Mountain Witch when we played it on. Did we play it on Roll20? I think we did.
We started on. We didn't finish it.
We didn't finish, but we started. But the concept I had for that character was it was a kid pretending to be
right,
like a hero or something like that.
Yeah.
I can't remember. He was like, but like. He would he was wearing samurai armor and clothing and stuff to try and hide his identity. Mm-hmm. And so, but I was playing him with a high voice, his voice would squeak and he'd be pretend to talk like he's I'm a big strong guy, So that was his whole gimmick.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I remember that being fun. And then I don't think I've ever played anybody that was especially old or young, but I did mention that I played a character that over the campaign did age, and then I had used magic to make him not get the benefits or drawbacks of aging. And then I remember writing a journal from that character's perspective, feeling like his mental growth is stunted because he's not gaining the mental benefits he should be getting from aging, but he's just staying right where he is. So.
Yeah.
Is an interesting perspective, I think, on aging.
That right there is kind of why I made Abner at 59.
Yeah.
Because I wanted him to hit 60 and then hit that power reduction and be like, oh, no, I don't have it anymore.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. You wanted to give him that crisis. Yeah,
yeah, I did.
Yeah. And I guess when I asked this question, I should have specified that I was talking about, age category and not number of years, because a few people are oh, I'm playing a dwarf who's 200 years old.
Sure.
I'm not trying to.
Yeah.
I generally try to leave these up to interpretation. So I'm not saying anybody did anything wrong. I'm wondering if maybe I should have specified But I don't know. It doesn't really matter. So we got a few over on Facebook. Sean M. says, it's weird, but I've been making characters roughly my age within a decade or similarly aged proportionally, like a 20, 30-something elf age of 200 the whole time and never thought of this. I've considered playing a child or an elderly person, but never wound up doing it. And so, yeah, that's kind of what I was talking about, like the equivalent of a 20 or 30-year-old of an elf, however, whatever age that would be. Mm-hmm. Ryan P. says, I play a lot of elves, so my characters are typically much older than I am. So,
sure.
Valid answer.
Right.
Haley B says, my character is a dwarf who is like 345, literally knocking on death's door, but somehow still adventuring. So even for a dwarf, that character is old.
Right.
Eric B says, my next character is an old wise man with a high intelligence and wisdom, but low strength, dexterity, constitution, and charisma. Old bite grandfather who knows how the world works. And then Dustin F says, my youngest character was a preteen druid named Twiggy. He cast his magic by dancing. His animal companion was a dire bear named Trollbait. A dire bear.
That's
for
cool.
A preteen druid.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Ugh. It's like giving a toddler a gun.
Yeah, pretty much. On Reddit, we just got one. Pruno says, I generally decide how old the PC is based on the starting level. Level 1 is like a fresh-faced graduate from wizard school at age 16, ready for the world. And like the level 5 wizard is in their 40s, accepting they will never pay back those wizard student loans and should maybe have been a fighter like his cousin. Level 20, the wizard can cast Wish and can finally get rid of his student loans by age 300. There you go. I think a lot of people, I probably inadvertently think of my characters like that. I mean, I've talked before about how level doesn't have to be something in universe and such, but I think I generally do think of higher level characters as being older. I mean, I guess kind of makes sense because usually you're playing a campaign for however long. But I like the idea of the person who is just getting into their chosen field, even though they're fairly old. Like there's several episodes of Star Trek where you'll see someone in the background that is clearly like an ensign. So they like are just starting out, but the actor is like 50 or 60 years old.
Yeah.
And, I listened to a couple Star Trek podcasts and they've brought up like, what's it like being the 60-year-old ensign on the ship?
Yeah.
Not necessarily that like there's anything wrong with that. Just like, what is it like being a person who is that late in life just getting into their chosen field?
Well, I mean, I guess it's similar to being in your 30s and, still working at just a desk job.
I suppose. Yeah, I don't know. So over on Twitter, I think we have just one. Oh boy, how do you pronounce this name? I'm probably gonna. I could just not say the last name, but even the first name, I'm probably gonna mess up this name. Auk S
or Auk.
Auke is how their first name is pronounced. This is spelled. So, yes. So, Auk says, does playing Sindel the High Elf 862 years count? In which case, yes, I would say that counts.
Yeah.
However you're reading the question, I would say that counts.
Yeah.
Got a few on Discord. I probably won't read all of them, but Floofy Shoob says, plenty of immortals in Heroes Unlimited campaigns, an elf or two in 2nd edition. Never any vampires, gods, dragons, or undead. I've often considered playing a very old android like Hitchhiker's Marvin, but haven't actually gotten around to it. There's an option in Heroes Unlimited to play a golem, which would be fun. That'd be kind of cool. Yeah. And Jeff, you've in at least one campaign, you have been a Warforged that was unearthed somehow or another.
Right, yeah.
I know
so it was like ancient.
Yeah, in the 4th edition campaign.
Yeah.
That was what you were. I want to say there was a campaign Jay ran. Maybe it was Incursion. Maybe it was something else where your character, like, you started the campaign like walking out of a cave.
Sure.
Or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
But yeah, Warforged, which within Eberron, they're like only a few years, at most like a dozen years old.
Because they were made for the war that just ended.
So like they're only at most a couple decades old.
Yeah.
But most of them are in the single digits.
And that one even played around with, so in 3rd edition D&D, when you made a character, if you were rolling randomly for your character's age, you would, depending on your race, you would start with a base, then you would roll a different number of dice depending on what class you were. The idea being a fighter, it could have been like your 1 or 2 years after age of maturity, because fighters, you just kind of pick up a weapon, learn how to use it, and go on. Whereas the wizard has to go through many, many years of training in order to become a wizard. So wizards are probably going to be on average older than fighters or barbarians or whatever.
Yeah.
With Warforged, they did that the other way around because fighters were made first. The first Warforged were just meant to hold a weapon and fight with it.
Yeah,
Really interesting.
Whereas wizards were like, the war's been going on, we really need to end this thing, let's start doing more complex stuff.
Right.
So the wizard might only be 2 years old.
Right, it's the newer version.
The fighter's the older one because he's been around longer.
Yeah, so
that's cool.
That's really good.
I see, again, I love Warforged. Ian Eberron.
Gabe.
Anyway, Collins B says, haven't played too many elderly characters, but if you recall a previous funeral pyre, I played a child named Chimney Sweep Tom, who was 9 and an absolute joy to play.
Chimney Sweep
until
Tom.
he died horribly.
Oh, no.
The Beverage Tea says, if I can, I usually play characters who are 200 to 400 years old, which is middle-aged for gnomes, elves, and the like. These characters refer to their human and tiefling party members as sub-centarians and try to refer to their plans and adventures according to the big picture. But in most exchanges, their ages don't really come into play. So they're like, oh, you're going to build that house? Yeah, see you in a little while when you're done. The house is...
Right.
Might take a couple of years, but to them, that's nothing. I'll see him in...
Yeah, I'll see him in a minute. Yep.
Bill IVC says, I've played a teen fresh out in the world and discovering life. I think it can be a good change of pace from the typical grizzled veteran who has seen the world and the horrors within. I do think certain campaigns are more open to such than others, though. That makes sense.
I would be really keen on playing like a Goonies or a Stand By Me type of a campaign. That would be really cool. If
that was like the conceit of the campaign, I would be all over that. I would love that. It's weird when you have like, oh, my character's a child going around with this like 40-year-old grizzled war veteran, and it's a little like it's weird when the characters are so disparate that it's like, why are they even associating with each other? Like, what do they have in common?
Yep. The oldest character should be like 13, 14, 15.
I'm going to be my next character is going to be an infant sorcerer.
Infant, huh?
Yep.
Okay, well, so are you going to have the spell...
Sorry, I have to interrupt. That I was just glaring.
Yeah, Gabe was glaring at me for a while.
Go on, Dave.
But like infant crying, it's sort of like what is that maddening effect where you drive somebody wild?
Like gibbering, like the gibbering mouther.
Yeah, so like the infant crying spell would make people just go insane and start slaughtering each other.
Sure.
Brandishing weapons.
Wait, what's the cantrip? Vicious mockery, but it's but it's like but you're just crying instead.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Yeah.
John Gemstone says yes to both. I like the challenge of trying to think of someone with more world experience for being older than the younger is fun to be odd and quirky. Though I have only gotten to play these in one shots or a few games. And Thoin Frostax says, I haven't gotten to play a younger character, but I have a few younger NPCs, late teens, early 20s. Slipping into those roles is a lot of fun, and even though I'm not taking them on grand adventures, I still have to get myself into that younger mindset for roleplay. I have played a much older character, a dwarf near the end of his life, going out on one last hurrah. He wasn't intended to survive the campaign, but made it all the way through. We added that he died in his sleep under the stars after the big bad was slain and his friends were safe. He found peace after so many years of war. If this were the funeral pyre, we would clink a glass, but it is not.
That's cool.
Sorry, Tho and Frostax.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's pretty cool. Well, I think that'll do it for our last.
That actually
last
makes
question.
Me sad that that's not our funeral pyre.
It's pretty good.
Our next social media question is, where does your character or party live? Do they have a home base, or do they just live out in the wild or at the inn?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, see, all my characters have such horribly devastated backstories that they never want to go back to where they're from.
Sure.
So if they had lived somewhere, they don't now, and it's up to the DM in my, in my campaigns to like have us have a home base or, what have you.
Okay.
So where they live.
Okay.
The last campaign I played in, I think one or two of us had the background where you basically could like befriend. Like it was like there was like the folk hero background sort of thing, or like
you can always find lodging.
Yeah, basically it was like we basically used that to we abused it. We're just like we basically just like shacked up in some guy's like some random person's place, and they were like, yeah, we're sympathizers to this resistance or whatever.
Yeah,
and so we ended up like just kind of like taking over this guy's place, and like we would just like we'd go out, murder a bunch of guards and stuff. We'd be like, bloodied and everything. And we just kind of like trail a bunch of mud into this guy's house, be like, hey, we're going to go sleep on the couch, like, so
okay.
like, but like, there were like, we made a joke about it where he was just like, okay.
Yeah. I could see that getting pretty old real fast.
Right.
In that character's mind. I always love when my characters have a home base of some sort.
Yeah.
And whenever I'm running a game, I like it when the players either have a place that they live or at least have some sort of like long-term lodging. Like I always have to roll my eyes a little bit when they're like, yeah, no, I just go sleep in the woods. Or like, oh yeah, I just have a room at the inn.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. I mean, I guess the focus of the game is not about where's your house, but
right. Yeah.
it feels less believable to me.
I mean, you can always add a little something to like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go stay at the inn, but like it's like, well, I'm gonna go to the nice inn, and then I'm gonna talk to the barmaid first, and then like I'll you do like a little bit of role playing to get into that room or something.
Sure.
Or if they want to sleep out in the woods, it's like, okay, you set up camp. Like, how do you set up your camp? Like it's like, do you are you in a clearing, or are you like in the deep woods?
Yeah. So anyway, that was the question. Where's your character live? Really,
Well, my next character is going to be an infant sorcerer turtle, so he'll live in a shell.
Oh boy,
like a Squirtle.
Like a Squirtle.
Is he also a Warforged, Jeff?
I don't see why not. I don't see why not.
He's a War Turtle forged.
Warforged. Nope. I like
because he's a Pokemon too. I forgot to say. So he's a War Turtle forged.
War Turtle forged.
All right, so that'll do it for our questions for this week. But before we close out, we do still have one more thing. So let's remember those who have come before us. Mm-hmm. Let's sit back. Let's take a deep breath. Let's remember those who have made the world a better place as we toss another log onto the funeral pyre. So, Dave, you have a funeral pyre for us today. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Take the spotlight.
My funeral pyre today is about Seth. He is a former snake-tongue cultist of Zahir, turned righteous paladin after the ritual murder of his youngest sister.
Oh my.
Even before I knew Seth's name, I knew that he was going to be a paladin and that his ultimate goal would be to one day slay the Tarask.
Whoa, okay.
Yes. This was a very metagame decision, as I had previously talked with my DM and asked him what was the hardest to kill monster in the monster manual. So when I told him, my DM Jim said that this was a very bad idea. He also told me, that even in the slim chance that we could level up high enough to pierce it, it might not stay dead because of its natural regeneration would kick in.
Yeah.
And so undeterred, I made up Seth's snake-tongue cultist background to give him such a hate of evil aligned reptiles that he would pursue certain death for the minute chance of his success. Jim then introduced me to the rest of my adventuring party, a Dwergar war priest, an elf assassin, a deep gnome arcane trickster.
Okay.
Noticing a theme. So they were all pure evil, or at the very least on the neutral to neutral chaotic neutral spectrum. So this is, my first dedicated campaign, and I didn't really know that it would be a train wreck at this point.
Sure.
So we were adventuring. I kept making lawful good decisions and used non-lethal blows to disarm and interrogate enemies while sparing their lives. So the others were trying to sneak up on guards as they slept and coup de grace them nice and stealthy. And I ruined that a couple of times, and they started calling me lawful stupid.
Okay.
So in the interest of letting me pursue my endgame of killing the Tarask, Jim let me find a wish spell in a dungeon. We kept adventuring until an NPC warned us about a nearby black dragon lair. We went up into the mountain to terminate it, and when we located the lair, we found that instead it was a lawful good gold dragon.
Oh, my.
So, the mostly evil party proceeded to try and kill it, seeing it as nothing but a bag of XP that they could level up on. I pleaded with them to spare the noble beast's life, but it was soon too late. They had killed it and were turning around to once and for all kill me.
Oh, my.
So I used my wish spell to have the gold dragon's life restored. The party transported back to town with no memory of the NPC tip about the lair or having ever been there. I also wished that, I could be transported somewhere else and that they had totally forgotten about me.
Okay.
So the funeral pyre is not necessarily about the death of a character, but the death of a campaign, because from there, that was pretty much the end.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, there you go. I guess let's raise a glass in memory of not a character, but a campaign that I guess should be careful what they wish for. Clink. Was that a good send-off? I don't know. I don't even know. All right. Well, that'll do it for today. So, Dave, thank you very much for coming on. If you'd like to, once again, tell our listeners who you are, where they can find you, how they can help you do whatever it is you're doing.
All right. So, I'm David Johnstone. I'm a admin of Facebook group Dads with Daughters. We are all on a journey of discovery. We're 82K and rising, and we have subgroups that I run. I am in charge of basically the subgroups. I don't really do a lot with the main. So Gamer Dads, then there's RPG Dads. Those are subgroups under our network. And then I have Discords that I have put up that go along those lines with the subgroups. So the one for RPG Dads is RPG Game Finder. You can find some of my campaigns there that I'm running. And then there's also a Gamer Dads stream Discord for the Gamer Dads. And Gabe, your podcast is listed as one of the podcasts in the network there.
Cool.
I was like, wait, Gabe, are you a dad?
I'm not.
Okay.
No, he's not a dad.
But we are dad-friendly.
Yes. we are a dad-friendly podcast.
Yes.
I like it.
All right. Have anything else?
Oh yeah, that's right. You can check out our YouTube channel, me and my daughter. We have Cat and Fam Gamer TV. She has a playlist for Kingdom Hearts that she's just started. Oh, cool. We have a playlist for Minecraft that has been running for quite a while that we play together. And I have my own playlist for Final Fantasy IX.
Cool.
Nice.
And I'm on like 60 episodes in, so there's a lot there to watch.
Cool.
Yeah, those longer play RPGs. Yeah, if you're trying to keep it like short episodes, so it's a lot of what's watchable, you end up with a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, again, thank you, Dave, for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. So that'll do it for our show. To submit questions for us to discuss, items for the Dragon's Horde, or stories for the funeral pyre, please email us at interpartyconflict@gmail.com. For show notes, links to media mentioned on the show, and running lists of questions and magic items, go to interpartyconflict.com. Join the discussion on social media. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/interpartyconflict, on Reddit at r/interpartyconflict, on our Interparty Discord, or on Twitter at InPartyConflict for our weekly social media questions. Your answers might end up on the show. Find us on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, YouTube, anywhere you download podcasts. Please rate, review, subscribe, or just tell a friend. If you'd like to support the show, check out the rewards at patreon.com/interpartyconflict. There's a few different tiers, so anything you can spare, even $1 a month, would go towards making the show better, and you'll get bonus content for it. Jeff, tell us about FriendQuest.
FriendQuest is our YouTube channel where we play video games, and I have recently spoken with Griff.
Awesome.
He's working on getting his schedule under control at work so we can get playing again. But for now, you can at least go back on there. We still have plenty of games that we played on there. So
cool. And I'm going to be off from work for quite a while pretty soon. So hopefully we'll get some more recorded.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Speaking of video games, check out my side project, the Arcade Memories Podcast. If you'd like to submit your own childhood memories of going to the arcade, record them or write them to me at arcadememoriespodcast@gmail.com. Also, head over to bit.ly/interpartyconflict to take a short survey about our show, what you like, what you don't like, etc. And just for taking it, you'll get 2 free printable board games, courtesy of Mary and Tom over at hollandspiel.com. And our music is made by Boxcat Games from Nameless the Hackers RPG. So, Jeff, until next time.
Gabe. I'm not actually Jeff. I'm a Warforged from the future.
Jeff, that's what I've assumed all along.
Oh.